Hi, everyone. Welcome to Summer Meals, Planning and Preparing for 2025, hosted by the Food Research and Action Center. I'm Steve Hayward, Communications Manager. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few brief housekeeping items. We expect this webinar to run about 60 minutes. We are recording the presentation and will send the recording and slides in a follow-up email. Closed captioning is available. To turn captions on, click the CC button in the bottom taskbar and select English as the spoken language. We'll have time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation. To ask a question at any time, please use the Q&A panel in the bottom taskbar. With that, I'll pass it off to Clarissa Hayes, Deputy Director of Child Nutrition Programs and Policy at FRAC. Take it away, Clarissa.
Great. Thanks, Steve. And hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, which is on summer meals, planning and preparing for summer 2025. We are so glad that you could all join us today. We know that across the country, planning for summer meals is either in full swing or going to be in full swing soon. So we are very excited to be kicking off our summer meal series with this webinar. So we really think that this webinar is appropriate whether you are a sponsor or a site that's looking to expand your operations, or if you're an advocate or a partner that is working in this space. There are many key opportunities here as we lead into 2025 to support this important work being done around summer meals. So let's go ahead and get started. So we have a pretty straightforward agenda for today's conversation. I will start us off with a brief 101 on the summer nutrition programs, including the benefits, program basics, and key opportunities for expanding access. And then we're going to hear from two guest speakers on their insight on how to support summer meals efforts. So we have Stacy McDaniel joining us from the YMCA of the USA, and we have Treasure Standiford, I spelled it right. Okay, wanted to make sure, who's from Hunger Free Oklahoma. So again, we're very excited to have both of these amazing speakers joining us today. So we will hear from them about their insight on both the national and local level. And then at the end, we're going to save time for any questions that you have. So please feel free to add those to the Q&A feature on your screen, and we will make sure to track those as we go along, and then also spend some time at the end of the webinar going over those questions. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I always like to start any discussion around summer meals talking about the research and what we know happens during the summer months, because it provides a really key context and foundation for our conversation today. And what we know is that summer can be pretty much the most vulnerable and hungriest time for children across the country. And this is because we know that students who rely on free and reduced price meals during the school year lose access to those during the summer. We also know that research shows us that rates of food insecurity and food insufficiency among children are higher in the summer, and that children are more vulnerable to accelerated weight gain, increases in BMI, and obesity during the summer months. On the other hand, outside of the health issues that we see during the summer months, we also know that during the summer, learning loss is more common, and research shows that it is impacting low-income students and students in later grades at a higher rate. So wanted to share that. We have a really great research brief on what happens during the summer months if you're interested in learning more, but it really helps to set the scene of why the summer nutrition programs are so important. Next slide. So again, why are these programs so important? So we know that school meals are keeping kids nourished and engaged and healthy during the school day, and that need does not disappear when the school year ends. So the summer nutrition programs, they help to address hunger and food insecurity by providing free meals to children 18 and under at low-income sites. They're also key to helping to support the operations of schools and meal sponsors and summer programs by providing reimbursement for meals and snacks that are served during the summer. And this is really key because it allows those partners and stakeholders to reallocate those funds that were being used for nutrition to other things like staffing and program improvements. The other key thing about this program is that while it is a federal nutrition program, it is not a one-size-fits-all. There is a lot of flexibility to this program, depending on whether you're in a rural area, urban, suburban, program or not a program. This program can be adapted to meet your need, including the timing of when meals are served, menu options, and locations. And last but not least, before we go ahead and talk a little bit more about data and the program basics, we know that, again, summer enrichment and education opportunities is so important to help address that summer slide. And we know that many summer sites are offering some kind of enrichment or educational component, and this helps to address that learning loss. Even if there's not structured programming, summer sites can be a key place for children to get out of the house and socialize and be around their peers and caring adults. So these are the benefits of the summer nutrition programs. Let's go ahead to the next slide and talk a little bit about where we are with the programs. So here at FRAC, we do release a report on the summer nutrition programs every year that looks at participation in each state and on a national level. So because of the way we get the data, it is always a year late. So our most recent report, which was released this last summer, looks at July 2023. And what we found is that on an average day, almost 3 million children received a lunch through the summer nutrition programs, which seems very high, and it's a sign of all the great work that's being done. But we know that this is not keeping up with participation in school lunch, which is a really great measure to see where we should be with summer meals. And we know that the summer nutrition programs reached one child with a summer lunch for every 6 who received a free or reduced price school lunch during the 22-23 school year. So what this data is saying is that not every child who is eligible is participating in summer nutrition programs, and it's going to take a lot of partnership and commitment in every state to make sure that we are expanding the reach of these important programs. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the basics of the program. This is going to be a pretty high level update, just in the interest of time. If you do have more information about the programs and the 101, we do have another webinar that we will share in the follow-up, and your state agency and USDA have additional information on the basics. But let's go ahead and dive in. So during the summer, there are really 2 key program options that can be used to serve summer meals, and that is the Summer Food Service Program, SFSP, and the Seamless Summer Option, SSO. So through both of these programs, generally, sites can serve up to 2 meals unless it's a camp or a migrant site. So sites can serve breakfast, lunch, or snack in certain combinations. A lunch and supper cannot be served at the same site. So in order to be eligible to participate, areas need to be area eligible. And what that means is that a site is located in the attendance area of a school where at least 50% or more of the children are eligible for free or reduced price school meals. And this data can be found through either school data, so school enrollment data, which is based off free and reduced price meal forms. And then it can also be found through census data. So there are 2 avenues to see whether you are in an eligible site. And the USDA does have a really great map where you can put in your site location and you can tell whether it is eligible based off of census data. If you are looking to find out whether you're eligible for school data, you'd have to connect with your school or with your state agency. And the other key piece of these programs is that they have to follow the USDA meal pattern requirements for this program, similar to all federal nutrition programs. So next slide, please. I won't talk too much about this, but I do think it's important to just share the key differences between Summer Food Service Program and Seamless Summer Option, so you can know if you are interested in operating, what could potentially be the right option for you. So the key difference is that for the Seamless Summer Option, this is available to school food authorities, so school nutrition departments. The easiest way to think about this is that it's an extension of the National School Lunch Program. So meals that are served are reimbursed at the free rates in the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program, and then schools must follow the school lunch and the school breakfast meal patterns. And many schools take up this option because, again, it's an extension of school lunch, so they can keep menus and many of the key components the same and just operate that during the summer months. On the other hand, there's the Summer Food Service Program, and this is available to school food authorities as well, and then as well as other nonprofit organizations and government organizations. So there is a higher reimbursement for this program, and the meal pattern is a little bit more simplified. So those are the two different programs. And let's talk a little bit more about the structure of this program and who are the key players when it comes to serving summer meals. So next slide, please. All right, so on the right of this slide, you can see a easy look at how this program is structured. So at the very top is USDA, who's funding the program, and then state agencies are administering the program. In many states, actually in most states, it is the Department of Education, but that can look different in your state. But for the most part, it is the Department of Education. So the state agency is working with sponsors, they're training and monitoring, they're making sure that the reimbursements are going out, and they are going to be your best partner in this work if you are considering to operate the program. So sponsors, what we have here on the slide, are one of the biggest players in the summer nutrition programs because they are the ones that are making sure that the meals are getting to the sites. So sponsors are going to attend the state agency's training. They're going to help to locate eligible sites. They're going to make sure that the site staff who are serving the meals are hired and trained and supervised. They're going to make sure that the meals are prepared and delivered. They're going to monitor those sites, and then they're also going to prepare the claims for reimbursement and get that reimbursement. And then we'll talk a little bit on the next slide about sites, but I do want to mention that your state agency is going to be able to share information about their training, answer any questions that you have, and also help you get started. So if you need any help connecting to your state agency, we can share a list of those contacts at the end, but they are going to be your key source for this information. So on the next slide, let's quickly talk about site responsibilities. So sites, they attend the training from their sponsor. They are the ones who are at the actual location where kids are consuming and getting the meals. So they will be following any guidelines for distributing those, including the meal times, counting, and serving. They're going to make sure that the meals are served at the right temperature and safely. And then they're also going to keep meal counts, daily records of meal served, and other required records. So this is a lot of information. One thing that I will say is that many partners, as they come into the summer nutrition programs, find it easier to opt in first as a site so that you can work with your sponsor, get the meals, not have to have as much of the administrative lift. And then as you become familiar with the summer nutrition programs and you want to take on more of that responsibility, you can then become a sponsor. All right, so let's go ahead and move on and talk about the meal pattern briefly. So like I mentioned earlier, these programs, like all the federal nutrition programs, do have to follow USDA guidelines for the meal pattern. And meals have to follow these in order to be reimbursed. And this is a pretty simplified look at the meal pattern. And this is just for summer food service program because like we mentioned earlier, schools are using the school meal pattern. But just wanted to give you a general overview of what it looks like to serve breakfast, a lunch or supper, or a snack, and how many different components that includes. So just taking a quick look at breakfast, you will see what comprises a breakfast, and you have to serve all of those three components. For lunch, you can see those options there as well, and then also for a snack. And for a snack, you can see that 2 of those 4 components have to be met in order to be a reimbursable meal. So just wanted to give you a quick look at what that meal pattern looks like. And we can go ahead to the next slide, please. All right, so like we mentioned earlier, each meal that is served can be reimbursed if it's following all of the program guidelines. So summer food service program sponsors are reimbursed for every meal served, and these rates are adjusted annually. And so for summer 2025, I do have the rates here on this table in orange. So you can take a look there. There is a higher reimbursement if you are in a rural area or if you are self-prepping your meals, which means that you are preparing them on site, putting them together. And then if you were using a vendor or a food management company, that reimbursement rate is a little bit lower, but not by very much. And then I always like to show a visual of what this looks like if you are serving meals through these programs. So if you have 300 children across sites and you're serving for 40 days, that is just over $100,000 in reimbursement that you would get to cover the cost of, to help cover the cost of your operating costs, such as food, labor, facilities, and your administrative costs, which can be like labor, for example. If you are serving 100 children for 40 days, the reimbursement rate is just over 33,000, and then 50 children for folks with smaller sites, just over 16,000. So again, like to show that visual of how this can add up if you are providing 2 meals at sites, so you can get a really good picture of the impact and how helpful this can be if you are already doing your meals out of pocket. All right. So the last thing that I will mention before we turn it over to our amazing speakers is just to talk a little bit about the non-congregate and rural areas option, which has been a permanent option now for 2 years. It became an option during the pandemic when schools and summer sites were closed. And then through legislation 2 years ago, we have a permanent option here. And really, the goal of this program is to fill gaps in rural areas that do not have access to traditional congregate summer meal sites. So, usually with this program, kids are going to a site, they're consuming the meals on site, and then they're leaving. We know that not all children have access to sites, transportation and other barriers exist. So, through this option, if a site is eligible, which means that they have to be in a rural area, which is defined by USDA, and then also area eligible, so meeting that 50% threshold that we talked about earlier, sites can actually serve meals to go. So this is a great option. Meal options include bulk and multi-day and home delivery, and we really believe that it's a complement to the traditional summer nutrition programs and helps to fill that gap in rural areas. So I know we'll hear a little bit more about this later, so I won't spend too much time on this, but on the next slide, and we'll make sure that this gets added in the follow-up, and you can go ahead and scan that QR code if you'd like. But USDA does have a pretty amazing map that shows what areas are rural. So if you want to go ahead and take a look at that, you can type in any address and you can see whether it would meet that rural designation. And USDA did expand the definition of this last year. So some areas that maybe weren't eligible before could be potentially eligible through these new designations. So it's a great tool. Highly recommend checking that out and yeah, exploring that option in your community. All right, so again, I'm going to turn it over to our speakers. And before then, just one last thing that I want to put out there before we move on. So next slide, please, Steve. I think one thing that we really want to make sure you take away from this webinar, and I think our speakers will cover this very well, is that as we start to think about the summer nutrition programs and what your role can be, just know that you do not necessarily have to be a sponsor to be at the table with these discussions. Summer really is this whole holistic group of partners that are doing things on this. So whether you're a site, a sponsor, if you're an advocate, if you're a convener and bringing partners together to identify those underserved areas, or if you're a partner that's looking to volunteer or give assistance in other ways, there is a role for everybody. So again, we're very glad that you could join us today. And I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to turn it over to Stacy McDaniel from the YMCA, who leads their national anti-hunger work and is going to talk a little bit more about what they're seeing from the Y perspective. So Stacy, I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Clarissa. I'm excited to be with you all today. I am the Director of Strategy and Quality Practices Anti-Hunger with YMCA of the USA. We serve over 10,000 communities across the nation and have really been delving into summer meal programs to make sure that kids have good, consistent access to that nutrition they need all year round. So let's talk a little bit. Clarissa had asked that I share a little bit about my role. And so on this next slide, you are going to see our team of anti-hunger thought leaders. These are hunger heroes from across the nation at local YMCAs and our partner at FRAC. You can see Clarissa too, but really coming together to strategize how to best equip YMCAs to be able to serve their communities and meet those nutrition needs during those out of school time. So we come together and we talk about innovation in the field, also what best practices are we seeing, and then create resources and opportunities to connect with others to share those. So I'm going to share with you today some of those stories from across our network and what summer at the Y has looked like. So, some key pieces that we found to sustainable and strong summer meal programs are really making every bite count. We want to serve food that is nutritious and that the kids want to eat. No one wants a cold, wet bologna sandwich, right? We want to make sure that when we're serving the food, it's fresh, that it's appetizing, but also knowing that for some of our kids, this is all they're going to get. We want to make sure that it's good quality nutrition, that we are serving fresh produce if an option, and making sure that kids are getting that good solid nutrition they need for their health. So we also tell our staff, right, if you're working with vendors, that are you serving food that you yourself would want to eat? When we put out bids, right, we want to make sure that not only is it a good price, but it also is good quality food that we ourselves would want to consume and that will keep our kids coming back every day to receive that good food and looking forward to it. Also, serve up the fun. It is summer. We want to be creative in how we're engaging our partners and offering fun activities that really attract the families to those open meal sites where any kid can walk up and access those meals. And we know also hunger is a very sensitive issue, and that when we're talking about complimentary meals, to go along with the fun activities, it lets families feel very comfortable in coming to those sites as well. And it just creates a safe space for them to be in. We also know it's important to have our leadership buy in, that they understand the mission of why we're serving summer meals. We encourage you as well to invite your leadership, your board members, your government officials as well, our members of Congress, invite them to your summer meal sites. Let them see and let them volunteer and be part of passing out those meals because we know that we need them to be bought in and we need to see firsthand the impact of these programs in our communities. So we encourage you to advocate, to invite your leadership and those folks to come take a look, be part of this mission in action. We also know that messaging around the meal programs and your service time matters. A lot of times, if you're serving breakfast during the summer as well, right? We think, oh, breakfast is at 7 o'clock. Well, is that community up at 7 a.m.? It is summer. We want to be cognizant of that. Maybe it needs to be pushed back. Also, Clarissa mentioned that non-congregate rural, but if you're doing those weekly bundles, what time are you serving them? If it's at noon on a Wednesday, working families may not be able to get there. So, what time works best for your particular community? And that you be cognizant of that when you're planning. Also, the messaging. No one wants to say they're going to get a free meal, especially if you're a teen, which we know historically is a really underrepresented age group for these meal programs, even though they're eligible. So we want to make sure that we're emphasizing complimentary meals. It tends to be a little more well received, and we're just being really respectful of how we message this for our families. Also, sometimes it's not build them and they will come. Sometimes you got to get on a bus and go to where the kids are. So we encourage you to think about those mobile routes. Also, this really amps up your staff capacity. Those staff can go serve the meals from stop to stop and take it exactly where the kids are. Where are your kids during the summer? Where are they hanging out? We see a lot of folks doing this in public parks, pools, libraries, churches, housing developments, apartments, mobile home parks, anywhere there's a large congregation of kids that you know need those meals, take it to where they're at. And if you're in a rural community, goodness, that rural non-congregate option for weekly bundles is powerful way of reaching families and getting that food to where they're at. So also don't forget that in addition to summer meals, you've got the CACFP at-risk after-school meal programs. We know that we staff up quite a bit for summer, but what we found is if you're not following that through with after school, you lose a lot of that staff, a lot of that knowledge. Think about it. Should we continue this effort on into those out of school time hours during the school year, on the weekends, which make up a full third of the year? There's other opportunities as well, and that keeps our staff consistent and our organizational knowledge about how to operate the programs. Also, your kiddos know where to expect the food. All right. So don't just take me for my word. Let's show you some examples in action. We've got up next the La Crosse Area Family YMCA. This is in Wisconsin. And I'm actually going to share in the chat box with all of you. You can check this out later if you'd like, a video that they put together. But they actually get together and they go beyond their walls, exactly what we were just talking about. And they go out into public parks and have the kids. You can see there's sack races going on. There's fun activities for the kids that are drawing them in, and they also get the meals while they're there. You can actually see they had a visit from USDA Deputy Undersecretary Cindy Long this summer. She's high-fiving the kids. They're excited about the food, sharing with her what their favorite things are to eat this summer and some of the new produce that they've tried. So think about where they go. The parks are hopping with activity, and it's a great way to take those meals directly to where your kids are over the summer. Up next, you've got the YMCA of Greater Montgomery. And they actually have what is called their brown bag bus. They are doing mobile meals and they go into the community, into areas where, again, there's large populations of kids that need it. They stop, they give the food, and then they go on to that next area. You can see I've included some write-ups as well about that, as well as a resource from our colleagues at No Kid Hungry about how to launch a mobile meal program. These are wildly popular because they're also billboards for your mission, and folks want to be part of it. They want to volunteer, they want to donate to help make sure those meals are getting to the kids that need them the most. So check those out, and you can see as well the CEO's support on this, that it should, by offering these summer meals and going to where the kids are, it shows their commitment to improving the community, that they're working to address vital community need of food insecurity by meeting people where they are and truly becoming a YMCA without walls. And we know that not everyone can come to us, so we do make those efforts to go to where they are and see a great opportunity. So many kids coming up to those stops. So next up, you have got the YMCA of Southeastern North Carolina. This is a YMCA that wanted to do those rural meals. They saw the need in their community. So they went to areas that are hotspots in that rural community. I intentionally left the logo back there, but that's the Family Dollar. How many of you have seen Dollar Generals, Family Dollars in those rural communities? You know that that is a hot spot where families go. And so they actually worked with Family Dollar to set up their tents in that parking lot and had the families come in and get those weekly bundles. You can see families are coming up, they're registered, and then the staff loads those bundles into their vehicles for them. Also included a video for you. You can see some of the families talking about what that means for them and how it's stretched those food dollars. One grandmother shares, she's like, I never knew kids could eat this much. All you mamas out there know that feeling, right? I've got two grown boys that eat me out of house and home in the summer, and it's the same for every family. And when your food budget is stretched, as we know it is during the summer, that is a hardship. And going into these rural communities, helping families get those weekly bundles is instrumental. This has been a fabulous permanent addition and option to summer meal programs in those rural communities. If you serve a rural community, I encourage you to check it out because it does make such a difference in how many kids we're able to serve and how we can support those rural areas. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of opportunities to learn more. And I've included links for you throughout as well. So check those out and see what works best for your community. I just encourage you to look at where your kids are, what options are available to you, how can you work together with the partners who are serving already to strengthen that program, fill those gaps, and make sure that kids have the meals they need this summer. So thank you and excited to share. And I am turning it over to Treasure.
Okay, friends. Thank you guys for letting me join you. And Stacy, that was wonderful. I love seeing all the pictures of the sites and what YMCAs are doing across the nation. That's fantastic. Much like Stacy, I'm going to share just a little bit about my organization. But first, I am Treasure Standiford. I am the Child Nutrition program manager here at Hunger Free Oklahoma. And on the next slide, I will just show you guys a little bit and share about what we do in Oklahoma. So we leverage the power of collaboration, and you can see on here, collaboration is at the center of what we do. So Hunger Free Oklahoma does bring that unified statewide voice to the issues and solutions surrounding hunger. We hold a core belief that hunger is solvable, it's unnecessary, and that it impacts everyone living in Oklahoma. We do believe that everyone should have access to nourishing food, and we are working to ensure that all Oklahomans can access 3 meals a day, 365 days a year. So with the next slide, strengthening summer meals across the state is huge for our organization. It is one of my favorite programs to work on every year. Our work to strengthen summer meals does include mapping participating sites at our mealsforkidsok.org website. Kids, teens, and their families can find where sites are easily, and it can help us strategize with partners to ensure coverage in eligible communities across the state. For those interested in seeing how it works, I want to give you guys a zip code to test out. So you can go to www.mealsforkidsok.org. I'm going to give you the Tulsa zip code 74106. And I would love for you, when you get a chance, just to test that out. You can pull it up, enter that zip code, and it automatically shows you where sites are all around you so that you can get to the nearest one. So it's a really neat process and just helps us map out what's happening across our state. So we facilitate the Oklahoma Childhood Food Security Coalition, gives us an opportunity to connect sites and sponsors to one another, to assist with collaboration and community partnerships, which I'm going to talk about more later. We also support sites and sponsors by fostering partnerships and collaborations in communities. And it just helps us be able to keep sites open all summer long. I know that we have organizations out there that they might only serve in the months of June or in the month of July, or sometimes when school is out and they just finish out what's out in May. And so we like to collaborate with our partners across the state to make sure that we're keeping as many sites open as we can all summer long for these kids. So on the next slide, I'm going to share with you a little bit about the Childhood Food Security Coalition. So Hunger Free Oklahoma serves as the backbone and the facilitator for our Childhood Food Security Coalition. This coalition was formed in 2016, so it's been around a little bit, and it works to improve education and health outcomes for Oklahoma's youth by increasing access to nutritious meals in and out of school time. Like Stacy said, don't forget about those after school meals and CACFP programs. They really do walk hand in hand with one another. But each month, partners from more than 20 state agencies, school districts, food banks, youth development organizations like YMCAs and Boys and Girls Clubs, libraries have had a tremendous increase in summer meals. Our tribal nations, nonprofits, and faith-based organizations, advocacy organizations, much like Hunger Free Oklahoma, we all come together to collaborate in order to help increase participation in those nutrition programs statewide. The coalition focuses its work on fostering those networks and connections, sharing resources to build up program capacity, and we advocate for improved program policies as well. So in the past years, the coalition has facilitated an annual statewide summer meals kickoff event where organizations or current and potential sponsors and sites, the Oklahoma State Department of Education, which is our agent for summer meals, and others would come together to collaborate on the expansion of summer meals in Oklahoma. And in 2024, we kind of took our work and our dedication to summer meals a little bit deeper. So with Hunger Free Oklahoma and
Hey, Treasure.
Yes. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you sound a little bit better. You want to?
Okay. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So in 2024, we took our dedication to expanding summer meals a little bit deeper. So on the next slide, I will share a little bit about that. In 2024, we launched our first Summer Meals regional convenings. The purpose of these convenings are for current and interested sites and sponsors, schools, libraries, partnering agencies, and organizations to come together and collaborate on how to start, how to expand or increase, and definitely cross-promote services and resources in their communities. So by looking a little deeper into the data of summer meals progression, in 23 and both 24, we kind of realized that we were still not reaching the most underserved areas with our coalition goal. And that coalition goal was simply expanding summer meals to the kids that need it. So our team analyzed the data through our partnerships with our sponsors. We leveraged our collaboration with the Oklahoma State Department of Education as they provide a large portion of the data regarding summer meals. And we utilized the summer meal mapper, which I talked about earlier, and decided to take our work into the areas that had little or no summer meal sites. So rather than hosting one large convening where everybody had to come to us, we decided to break this out regionally and take the resources, the trainings, the materials, and just bring everybody together in their communities. And we feel like this has really sparked some good expansion of summer meals. I'm going to share some maps in the future or in the next few slides on that too. So on the wait, can you go back to that one? I'm so sorry. Yes, on this map, you'll kind of see where we had some of our gatherings in 2024. So we had Oklahoma City, we had Tulsa, and we had Lawton in Oklahoma where we gathered. And then in 2025, we went up kind of toward that western half of the state to Woodward, which we had that convening just earlier this month. We have one in Ponca City, and we're going to have one in McAllister. So we're really strategically trying to expand where the reach is to bring these resources to those that need it. So we understand that traditional congregate summer meals are great, but sometimes, like Stacy mentioned earlier, they can be hard to utilize, especially in Oklahoma, as so much of our state is rural. The Childhood Food Security Coalition, we just really decided to capitalize on the non-congregate option, as the grab-and-go meals can be leveraged for families with little to no transportation, working families who can't maybe get to those congregate sites on a daily basis, and those that may be traveling longer distances just to gain access to food in general. So on the next slide, this is what summer meals look like for Oklahoma in 2024. 241 sponsors, 739 sites. We had 75 counties covered. We have 77 counties in Oklahoma. So we've really done a great job of expanding what summer looks like in Oklahoma. So overall, you can see that between 23 and 24, we had some significant increases, not only to our congregate sites, but also to our non-congregate. So everything in red or orange up there is congregate. And then everything in purple is non-congregate. We did have a few counties that weren't covered, which is why we are targeting those counties and really getting these resources to them. And those were up on the western half of the state. And so we went to Woodward last week, and I think we got some things going there. So this analysis was really why we chose specific areas across our state. We really wanted to take this into the communities that needed us. So on the next slide, we'll take a look at how many were operating in 2023, and then we'll compare it to 2024 based off of the work that we did from this coalition. So here you can see the non-congregate and the grab-and-go sites where they were located. This was kind of that first year where you could have this option. And in 23, we had 7 sponsors with 55 sites, serving over 430,000 meals, which was a great start. Most of the state, not including Tulsa, some of that Oklahoma City metro and parts of Lawton area were not included in who could run non-congregate. but a lot of our state, other than those 3 main areas, are eligible. Our goal with these regional convenings last year was to ensure that communities are aware of this option, and that they could try to capitalize on it. So on the next slide, I will show you what 2024 looked like because of these efforts. So in 24, you can see we had 13 sponsors, up to 119 sites and 59 counties covered. So that was a huge leap from 23 to 24, serving from 430,000 to 1.3 million non-congregate meals and snacks served. So we had a drastic increase from 23 to 24, and we are pushing to have an even better increase in 2025. And so on the next slide, I'm going to share with you guys just some of our partner highlights and those who have their boots on the ground and working to improve summer meals in their areas. So I can't stress enough how important libraries are to summer meal sites in Oklahoma. They have just come in and just opened their doors to their kids and their families, and are starting to just be that place in the community, much like our school districts, and partnering with our after school programs and summer programs just to kind of be that light in the community. And so they're really doing a good job at having either congregate or non-congregate sites here in Oklahoma. So it's just the expansion of who can run these programs has been amazing. School districts in rural communities are also exploring the grab and go option to increase the number of kids that they serve. We have our Regional Food Bank of Oklahoma, who has operated mobile and truck stops in far west Oklahoma, where it was kind of more challenging to find those partner sites. So they have been a huge advocate in reaching and expanding their reach on summer meals. And of course, our tribal nations, Chickasaw Nation and Choctaw Nation, just really paved the way in 2023. They hosted several locations across the state, and kind of just led that in 23, and opened the door for other organizations to learn from them and to see how they were doing it, see what their expansion looked like. And it's really helped us grow here in the state. And again, libraries are so instrumental in just increasing both access to meals in both those rural and urban communities. And so what sponsors look like across your state, Stacy talked about this a little bit too, like just looking at who those sponsors can be. It can be out of the box, where you go and where you're going to be at. Just finding those families and those kids where they are in the community is so important. So with the next slide, I would just love to leave a few action steps for you all. Using data to identify those underserved areas in Oklahoma was so instrumental to the expansion, and what you've seen on those maps earlier. Just reaching these communities where they are was very important. Rather than having someone come to us for the training and the resources, we went to them, and it's made a huge impact. And engaging partners, engaging sponsors, bringing folks together just to find one another, those veteran sponsors and new sponsors, is so important to strategize over coverage across our state. Visiting different communities and building up their capacity has really helped us reach more kids as well. More kids, more families with numerous different programs, not only with summer meals, but talking about SNAP opportunities and community engagement opportunities, those outreach and resource opportunities. And then, my biggest tip I could share with you guys is really starting to plan now. Look at what your collaboration looks like. Look at what navigating the application looks like. I encourage you to find a peer to work along your application process with you, and just collaborate with them. And it just makes things go so much easier and so much smoother when you have a partner to work with in this. And if you're in Oklahoma, we would love to be your partner. If you're not in Oklahoma, we'd still love to be your partner through this process. But collaboration really does leverage the biggest power that we can hold with one another. Veteran sponsors are out there. They're willing to work with you and encourage you to serve kids in your area. And, you know, the one thing we do with this collaboration is work with one another on purchasing like shelf-stable meals for rural areas. You know, if you're not serving a hot meal and you're looking at purchasing shelf-stable foods, that purchase power of coming together and working together just helps in so many different ways. And so I encourage you to start your planning now, collaborate with people in your community. If you don't have anyone or you're looking for a place to start, Hunger Free Oklahoma is here to help you. So with that, I think that my information will be on the last slide. And if you're looking to connect, we're here and we would love to. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Treasure. And apologies, it was not your internet. It was my internet that
Okay.
went out. So yes, I will say take Treasure up on her offer to connect because they are doing truly amazing things in Oklahoma. And I know that I have just taken away so much from this, from you, Treasure, and from Stacy. And I think the theme here really is collaboration and that there's, you know, it's not a one size fits all. There are a lot of opportunities here when we think about summer meals. So let's go ahead to the next slide. I have been answering questions as I've seen them come through the Q&A. I think we'll take a couple minutes at the end to reiterate some of those. But I just wanted to kind of summarize, you know, what we've heard here today and where there are opportunities. So I think the biggest one is if you are in the fence or you're considering becoming a program sponsor, now is the time. Applications are up with state agencies to think about whether this is a good fit for you. And often it could be a good fit is if you are working with community partners already, if you are familiar with serving meals or providing any kind of meal service. Those are some things to really think about. The other piece that we didn't talk about today, but we will be exploring more on a future webinar is around developing a strong outreach plan. So we know that one of the barriers to summer meals still remains that people and families just don't know about it, or they're confused whether they're eligible or what the rules are. So making sure that either in your community or in the state that you have a strong outreach plan and are giving a cohesive messaging that's resonating with families. If you do not have the capacity to be a sponsor, but you're here as more of like a partner or a convener, take a look at your community and see where are the summer meal sites? Where are there programs happening where kids are gathering and they could be connected to a sponsor to serve meals? One tool that I will flag is the USDA Capacity Builder, and we'll make sure that that gets out in the follow-up. But you can put your address in, see what's around you as far as like schools and Parks and Rec and all kinds of other facilities. And it's a really great visual to see what's happening. And it's free data that's there. You can start there and then connect with partners to really flesh that out a little bit more. If you are doing summer meals, I will make a shout out for our webinar that's happening in a couple weeks about improving meal quality and serving kid-friendly meals. Like Stacy said, if we don't serve the meals that kids want to eat, they won't be coming back to the meal site. So that's really important. And there's been a lot of momentum behind Farm to Summer over the last couple of years that I think just makes summer meals even better. And then the other part too is, you know, as you convene your partners, what are your goals for expansion? How many more sites do you want to add? Are there counties that don't have any summer meal sites that you could target and focus on? I mean, we don't want to set the expectations, but having like concrete goals of what you want to accomplish this summer is a great way to get partners to the table and start those conversations. So those are just some of the things that we wanted to pose as opportunities to think about for this upcoming summer. I believe the next slide are some of FRAC's resources, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, questions. Let's go to the next slide and then we'll do questions. So as always, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. We also have plenty of resources on our website that can help you as you think about your summer meals plan, whether it's promotion or engaging your governor or other elected officials. We also have a newsletter that goes out monthly where we put in best practices and funding opportunities and other resources as they are made available. So just wanted to get this all out there before we go ahead and talk a little bit about questions. So I answered a lot of the questions that came in. So there was a question around can CEP data be used for area eligibility? And yes, it can be used as a proxy. So if you don't really have reliable free reduced price meal information because a school has gone to CEP, that data can be used to like reach that 50% threshold. So CEP can be a little wonky, but if you do have any questions about that, I'm happy to connect on that later. And then we did have some questions, and maybe I'll open this to Treasure and to Stacy. Do you have any feedback on non-congregate and reducing food waste? Is there anything that you're hearing from your partners that you want to lift up for the people listening in?
Yeah, I saw the question on milk, and I know, right, for rural non-congregate, especially for families with multiple kids, it can be a little overwhelming. I know for our folks doing weekly bundles, they were doing like the half a gallons of milk, and I know for some sites too that they found, right, that storage for families, sometimes the families just don't have that, and so they have found some of the shelf stable options for milk to be an option as well to help out in terms of food waste. I know some of our Ys who are really working on efficiency really count what is not being taken and then strike it from the menu. And then, of course, I think it gets a little hard on rural non-congregate because you're not 100% what kids are not consuming at home. But I know we have heard testimonials from families as well with multiple kids that sometimes it all comes out in the wash because the kids are kind of working out for themselves. Maybe one kid doesn't like green beans, but the other kid does. And then the other kid doesn't like carrots. So it kind of comes out in the wash. But I think just again, taking feedback and also watching what's happening, being cognizant of it, what is going to work. We've had a lot of families too, a lot of Ys who, just looking at culturally relevant foods too, right? Sometimes as big of a thing as offering different spices has made a difference in the food being consumed and being cognizant of the communities that are being served. Sometimes some foods don't go over as well. Maybe sun butter's a hit at some sites and at others it's not. Just really taking that feedback and monitoring that because we know that can get to be, you just don't want to serve food that kids aren't going to eat. So want to be cognizant that we are offering what they're wanting in the home.
Stacy, Treasure, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would say that in Oklahoma, we work a lot with our vendors on shelf stable foods. And a lot of our organizations, they're surveying their kiddos and their families about likes and dislikes because they are paying attention to food waste and things like that. I know one organization has like a backpack program and also runs non-congregate. And so they're really mindful of what's going into, whether it's the weekend, is it, the Monday through Friday thing? What does that look like? And so a lot of organizations are kind of surveying and talking to kids and families on what they're eating and stuff like that, because we definitely want to make sure that the food that is sent with each kiddo is consumed. And then I seen it in the chat, but yes, the shelf stable milk and stuff is a great option. You can get white milk and your chocolate milk and stuff like that, just the same as you can in the cartons of milk and stuff like that. So for the non-congregate option, the shelf stable is a great idea, especially for families that may not have microwaves or stoves or refrigerators and things at home. The shelf stable option just seems to be a go-to for us.
Yes, and we have some folks in the chat who are affirming that. So thank you so much. All right. Well, I think we mostly answered all the questions in the chat. I do see a couple around options for like menu options. So we will do our best to collect some on our end and share those out with the pieces that come out with the recording. And then there was a question around, can children go to 2 sites? So I will just say that the limitation of serving 2 meals a day is limited to the site. So a specific site can only serve 2 meals. There's nothing about a child can only have 2 meals. So I want to just be very clear, like as the statute reads, that's the understanding of that the limitation is tied to the site, not to the child. All right. And I see Stacy is typing an answer, so we'll give her a chance to do that. But other than that, we will make sure that anything we mention as follow-up, we'll make sure to get in the email that goes out after the fact. I think we addressed all the questions here. I do see a question around what's available through the school year for weekends and breaks. So CACFP after school meals, that is an option for during the school year at any point, including school breaks and weekends and holidays. The only thing I will flag is that that does not have a non-congregate option. So any meal served through that program, the kid would have to go to the site and consume it and then go home. They wouldn't be able to take that home. All right. Well, we will go ahead and wrap up a little early. I want to just thank Stacy and Treasure for joining us today. I think this is such a great way to kick off summer meal season and get really excited about all the opportunities that exist here for this program. So again, as always, feel free to reach out afterwards. We will be sending out some follow-up information, and please stay in touch and good luck. All right. Thank you, everybody.